Hi guys, Samantha from Jessima Tutorials here, and today is day one of the Crackle-a-thon. So today I'm going to start off with a really cool crackle, which is this beautiful kind of iceberg lightning crackle that I was playing around with a little while back. So this is what we're going to be creating today for day one. Now there are going to be 30 days and I'm going to be doing it for a whole month. I'm going to be doing a crackle video every single day for an entire month. So be sure to check in tomorrow and keep updated by joining my Facebook group, Jessima Tutorials Polymer Clay Community. So to get started, you're going to need some black acrylic paint, and this is the brand that I am using. That is quite important. And you're also going to need some white polymer clay. I'm using Premo that has been rolled out on my thickest setting, which is about 2mm thick. And now before you do this, you want to roll it out to the setting, to the thickness that you want it to be throughout the entire project. So you can't thin this out again once you've done the crackle. So if you want it to be thinner than 2mm, do that before applying your crackle. So I've just trimmed it. Now I'm just going to take some paint, and you can use a brush, but I like to just use my finger. It's easier for me. And we're just going to apply a nice thin layer. You want to make sure that you don't have any white spots, but don't do a too thick a layer. So just rub that along the surface. And I like using my finger because I just find that I get a nicer consistency across the surface. Whereas with a brush I find you get lots and lots of brush strokes. Okay, so I'm just making sure that I get that a nice, somewhat solid black colour, and that I have no raised areas, because those take a while to dry. Make sure to remove those. Okay. Then you can either wait for that to dry, which can take maybe around 15 minutes or so, or you can use a hairdryer. Now I'm going to be using a heat gun in replacement for a hairdryer, but I've got on the lowest setting on my heat gun. So here you can see it's got lowest setting and the highest wind speed. But you can use a hairdryer just to quickly dry the paint. There we go, and that is just about all you need. So I'm just going to run my finger over this and make sure that it's all dry. There are a few areas that are a little bit still wet. You should be able to see that because some areas will turn chalky while others are still a little shiny. So I'm just going to go and make sure that those areas are completely dry. Then we can move on to our next step. Okay, and there we go. Now what I'm going to be working with is Chrome a Crackle. And now I've heard that a few of you have had trouble with this flaking. I'm going to be showing you throughout this tutorial how to prevent that and how to work around it. Now the flaking mostly appears once it has dried. I'm going to show you how to quickly burnish that down so that it doesn't flake anymore. But you can't run this through the pasta machine once you've applied the Chrome a Crackle. So this is your last chance to run it through the pasta machine if you need it to be any thinner. Once the Chrome a Crackle is on, that is how thick your clay is going to be. Okay. And I know some of you might not have this, so stick around for some of the other days in the Crackle-a-thon, because I'm going to be using just clay, I'm going to be using heat guns, I'm going to be using paint, I'm also going to be using some mixed media items like this. So throughout this month there should be a crackle or two that you will be able to do, regardless of if you have this sort of stuff or if you don't. So I'm just going to apply a good dollop of that crackle, and if you're looking for a place to get this, I got this from happythings.com.au, or not .au, EU. I'll provide a link to that in the links below the video. Okay, then I'll also just use my finger to just gently apply that. I know that some people use a palette knife, and I have tried it like that, but I just find that the layers are a little bit too thick. I'm going for fairly fine cracks. I'll probably add a little bit more crackle after this, but you want it to be about 1 millimeter thick, ranging from 1 millimeter to 1.5 millimeters thick. Generally I also go a little bit under 1 millimeter, and I know that the package says it needs to be about 1 millimeter thick, but I find that you can get crackles under 1 millimeter thick. They're just really small, which is quite nice for this because we're going to be making pendants, and small cracks look nice on jewellery. Okay, so I just applied a bit more, and I'm just going to kind of spread this out, and I'm trying to keep it somewhat even throughout the entire piece of clay, but at the same time I do want some areas to be a little bit thicker than others. So I'm just varying it slightly, but I do want it to be mostly consistent. Okay, and I'll just quickly clean that up. Make sure you got everywhere. I've got a little spot over there that I missed. Okay, and now if you just let this to dry, it can take up to 3 days to dry, so you'll just want to put this somewhere and leave it. A trick that I've found to get it to dry quicker is to actually use a heat gun or a hairdryer. Now it is still going to take at least 6 hours to dry fully, but you will have sped it up a lot more. And you actually get a different crackle. So let me just show an example of that. These are going to be shown later on in the Crackle-a-thon, so stick around for them. I'm not going to tell you what I've done with them, but they're another crackle piece that we're going to be showing. Now this is basically got the same surface treatments and things to it. The only difference between it with the Chroma Crackle is that this one I speed dried with the heat gun and got it done in about an hour, whereas this one I let dry overnight and then did the last little bit with the heat gun in the morning. And you can see that the crackle varies quite a bit. This one you've got a lot of thin, fine cracks with some larger cracks, whereas this one is a lot more consistent throughout the piece. So you can play around with it and have a lot of fun. You can kind of half dry it with the heat gun, then let it dry a little while, then come back with the heat gun, dry a little while, and you'll find that it creates some really interesting effects. Now again, you can use a hairdryer. Now I'm just going to start blowing, and I've got it on the lowest setting but highest wind speed. Okay, and I'm going to carry on with this for probably about 2 minutes until I start to see the first remnants, first appearances of cracks. Then once that's done, I will leave it for about an hour. So I'm going to show you what it looks like once I've got the first little crackly bits starting, and then I'll talk you through the next step. Okay, and I'm not sure if the camera is able to pick that up. Let me see if I can pick this up and show you. See if I can direct that right there. Hopefully you can see that it is starting to split. You've got some areas that are not shiny anymore. We've even got some areas here that are starting to show remnants of white. That is where I would stop with the heat gun, and then I would let this rest for about an hour, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like, and we will repeat with the heat gun. Now keep in mind, Chroma Crackle dries white when it cures properly. So if you do choose to not use a hairdryer or a heat gun and choose to just let it air dry, keep in mind that it will only be finished curing once it turns white. Now it might not be completely white. For instance, with this one, these blue areas are the Chroma Crackle on top of the black, and you can see that the black is showing through the crackle a bit, but you should be able to see that it turns kind of opaque and dark looking before, not dark looking, white looking before it is properly cured. So just keep that in mind if you do choose to air dry it, and even when you're using the heat gun, it should start to look pretty white before it is completely cured. So that is quite important. Okay, and now as this is curing, you will find that areas start to flake up. Don't worry about that, just let it cure, and I will show you what to do with that in a minute or two. Okay, so this has been drying for about half an hour, and hopefully if I direct this you can see some of those areas that are not shiny anymore. Not sure if you can pick that up there. But now we're going to grab our hairdryer or heat gun in my case, and we are going to blow it some more. Okay, and I can see that we're getting some cracks in some areas. I'm going to continue doing this for a little while until the cracks around here start getting a little bit too large for me, and then I'll let it sit for another half an hour. Okay, so it's starting to look really good, but the cracks again are getting a little bit large. Hopefully that you can see there. So once they get to about that size, I like to just let it leave it for about half an hour, let it sit, and then after that I will probably finish curing it with the heat gun. And you can see we're getting some beautiful cracks along here. We're not getting too much flaking just yet. You will start to see that the edges of your piece start to curl up. Do not worry about that, don't try to force them down just yet. You have to wait for this to cure first before you can do anything, so don't mess with it yet. But you can see already that we're starting to get some white areas. We've got some beautiful crackling along here, and so we will see if it turns out like this one. I'm using the exact same process, but again with these mixed media pieces, a lot of the time they turn out a little bit different, so let's see how it turns out. Really excited to see that. So I'll let this sit for about another half an hour and I'll show you what it looks like then. Okay, and here is how it's starting to look. So you can see that we've got some very small areas where it just needs to be dried still. Most of it has crackled, but has not turned white yet. So let's heat gun the rest, force it to crackle, and we'll see how it turns out. Okay, so I've spent about 3 minutes curing that so far, and you can see it, we're getting some white spots which look really nice, but a lot of it is still black. Now that's just because the chroma crackle has not gone white yet. Now hopefully you could see throughout that process with the curing, I did skip a few bits, but hopefully you can see there is starting to curl up a little bit, and this is where you're going to start getting flaking. If you get flaking at this point, once it is dry to the touch and you can press down on it and not have anything sticky come up, if it is flaking and causing trouble, grab a piece of plain printing paper and give it a really thorough burnish. And this will set all of that chroma crackle back down. Because what it's doing when it's flaking is it's not actually flaking off the clay from the looks of it. It's actually peeling the top layer of the clay off. So by doing this, you're going to take that and you're going to stick that layer of clay back down, forcing the crackle to lay back down as well. Okay, and there we are. You can see that's a lot flatter. It's not doing anything weird. And so now I'm just going to continue to dry it, and I'll come back to you when it is completely dry. Okay, And so that is just about dry. Now you can see it did turn out a little different from this one. The colours are basically the same, but this one had larger cracks. If you're looking for larger cracks, force it to cure faster. So spend more time with that heat gun earlier on in the process. You can see these large cracks around here. That is because we took the heat gun and forced the crackle to split before the underside had properly cured. So if you want these really large cracks, do that. If you want fine cracks, let it cure more on its own with less influence from a heat gun or a hairdryer. But I love how this looks. Now we're probably going to lose these little black spots still, but that is fine. We will lose them in the oven probably. You can see this is perfectly flexible still. The last thing that we want to do, just to make sure everything is stuck down properly, is just give it one final burnish. And that is it basically for our crackle veneer. I will be showing you how to turn that into a beautiful project. So I'm just burnishing that. There we are. Okay, and now you might be tempted to put this through the machine or something, or even give it a little bit of a stretch. You can give it a very, very small stretch by hand, but please do not put this through the pasta machine. It will completely ruin it. The crackle will come off and you will be left with basically white clay with little black specks in it. So please don't run this through the pasta machine, however tempting it is. This is how it has turned out, and personally I really, really like it. It kind of looks almost electric, or you could think of it as frost. It just turned out really well. So the next step is going to be to turn this into a beautiful piece of jewellery. Okay, so now we have to cut it out. I'm really reluctant to do that because I just love the entire piece, but got to do that. So put this off to the side, and I've got a piece of black Premo that has been rolled out on my thickest setting here, and I'm going to give it a very light burnish using some plain printing paper. And all this is going to do is it's just going to give it a matte finish on the back. I don't want to put a texture on, just a nice matte finish, like so. Okay, and now I don't have to worry about keeping that completely the way it is, because now we're going to put it onto our veneer. So I'll put that down, put that on top. I'm so reluctant to cut this because I love it the way it is. And remember, I just used black in this one. Try playing around with different paint colours. We'll maybe do that sometime later this month, or maybe I will have to save it for some other time in a different tutorial. But feel free to play around with different paint colours other than the black. I haven't tried it out, not sure how it will look, but it probably will look fantastic. Okay, so I put that on the back. Take your piece of paper again and give it a good burnish. And at the same time as we're going to be giving it a texture, this is going to burnish it down onto that veneer so it's nicely stuck onto our veneer, which is quite important. Okay. Okay, now that's stuck pretty well to the paper, and now I do want it to stay stuck to that paper because we're going to be cutting out a piece of clay, so I'm going to be burnishing from the other side now, mainly to just stick that down onto that piece of paper firmly, because this side is non-stick, it won't stick to anything. Okay, now you can use any cutter you want, but I'm going to be using this beautiful donut cutter that I have, and I will list the donut in the links below the video, and this is my largest version of this donut, so I think it's a 60. Alright, and I just don't know where to cut this out because everywhere just looks so pretty. I think I'm probably just going to cut over here, and then I might be able to get out some extra little bits and pieces on this side. Alright, so I'm going to cut this out. I'm going to press down nice and hard, and I have to stand up to this so my head is going to get in the way. Okay, and I've cut into it, and I've pressed down nice and hard. So I'm just going to check from the back if that has made a connection on the back. I should be able to see the clay coming through. So because we've got crackle, I might just press from the back just a bit, because you should be able to see that cut line coming through, because we want a nice clean cut. So the way you can do that is you can press from the back, and that will assist getting you a nice clean line, because with this crackle, it is a little bit chunky, and the cutter doesn't like to cut cleanly through it because it's quite hard. So you might need to assist your cutter a bit. There we go. Alright, now we're going to lift it. Hopefully it comes out of the cutter, but if it doesn't, like it did here, we can do something about that. So you can see all these straggly bits where the crackle is. Take that and smooth before you take it out the cutter. And any bits you don't get, you can either get later once we get out the cutter, or we can get after it is baked. But we do want to get off most of it. Right. Now you will press from the front side where the crackle is, because that is going to mean that you don't get any fingerprints on it, because this side is, well, it's got crackle on it and it's kind of, it doesn't take fingerprints, whereas the back will. So don't press from the back, press from the front, and just go slow with it. Gently press that out. And there we go. And you can see it's stuck to the middle a little bit. That's fine. Bring over a piece of paper again. Okay. Now, I did expect to have a little bit of trouble with the crackle. That is pretty normal. So just grab a blade, and generally you can get that crackle to come off. And anything that doesn't, I will take care of after it is baked. But it's generally best to try and get rid of most of it before you bake it. Okay, there we are. So we're definitely getting rid of pretty much all of that. This donut looks really nice with this crackle actually. And you can see that because we push down along the edges, you are going to have these white parts. That is pretty normal. Don't worry about that. We will fix that in a little while once this is finished baking. Just gently trim these edges, like so. And don't worry about if the edges look like one solid colour or not yet. That will be fixed in the next round of baking. For now, we just want to make sure it looks as tidy as we can get it. Okay, and then when I'm done trimming, just go gently pick that up and brush along these sides and pick off any bits that are being stubborn. And then I will put it in the oven for a full hour at Primo's recommended temperature. Just smooth these sides first. Okay. Alright, and then we'll see how this looks once it is baked. You'll probably lose some of these black bits due to the baking, because it will dry out that chroma crackle more. But that is fine. Okay. Okay, and here is cured, and I've made two little earrings here. Exactly the same out of the little scraps, and you can see that it is quite different from the original. So here is a look at that when it isn't cured. You can see it's a little darker blue, and it's definitely got black bits in it, but that is to be expected, so don't worry about that. Now we want this to cool, because it's like directly out of the oven, and I want you to get your liquid clay prepared, because we're going to be using some black Sculpey liquid clay, and we're just going to run that along the edges and on the inside once we have tidied up these insides. So we can do that quickly, because we do have a few little bits and pieces that are not quite as tidy as I would like them to be. And we need to do that before we put the liquid cloud. There we go. Okay, and I turn it upside down when I do this because it sometimes makes tidy up the edges a little bit easier, and also easier to see what needs to be tidied up. So just gently go around with your blade and trim away any little bits and pieces that you think look untidy, and then by then it should be dry, or not dry, cool enough for us to work with it as far as the liquid clay goes. Okay, and now I have finished tidying them up, so now we're going to start working on the sides. So I'm going to be using some black Sculpey liquid clay. You can use any brand you want, but I find the black Sculpey works best because it's thick. Whereas I used to use Kato, which is a great brand and it does work, but I find that the Sculpey works better for this because it's just so nice and thick and it doesn't run. Okay, and just gently layer it over your piece. Make sure you fill in any spots that are white along the sides. Be careful not to do that on the front though. On the front, we're just gently going to wipe any yucky bits away. But it will end up giving us a little bit of a black border, which is fine. And I will repeat for the earrings as well, and I'll also do the inside of this donut, because the inside square needs some coating on its edges as well. Okay, and here is how they look. So now I'm going to go and pop this in the oven for half an hour at Primo's recommended temperature. And then when we are done, I'm just going to seal it with a matte varnish, I do presume. And then I will show you how to turn it into a necklace. Okay, so here are our pieces out of the oven, and they're looking quite nice. You can see the backs are all nice and tidy, so are the sides. We've got a little bit of flaking, but that should be nicely strong and bonded onto our pieces, so now we don't have to worry. Now, you really do need to seal this because the chroma crackle, if it gets wet again, it will go black. So I just want to demonstrate that quickly. It actually looks quite cool. I've got a little spray bottle full of water here, and right now it is completely dried, but watch what happens if I spray a bit of water on it. So you can see there that it very quickly soaks up that water and starts to go dark again. So this is why we need to seal it. So I'm just quickly going to dab that. And now it doesn't make it wet, as in it goes sticky, but it does make it, it means that it's very, if you happen to get a bit of sweat on it, for instance, or maybe you were washing dishes and splashed something on it, you'll find that it does take on the water. So, and it means that it might not be as strong as it should be. So you could leave it and test it to see whether it holds up over time or not, but I don't really want to push my luck with that, so I'm going to just quickly get rid of this wetness, and then we're going to seal it with some Renaissance wax. Okay, so to seal it, you're going to grab some Renaissance wax, and I'm not going to use matte varnish because I don't want to dull the colour anymore than it is. Now you'll see that the Renaissance wax is wetting it, but it will dry, so don't worry about that. So I'll just continue putting Renaissance wax on it. Okay, so you can see it changed the colour. It's quite an interesting experience watching the colours change so drastically. Now I'm just going to take a buffing wheel and I'm going to give it a quick buff. Like so. And you'll see as the Renaissance wax is drying, your piece is now going to be drying as well. So don't worry about that. The Renaissance wax does not make it black permanently. So just buff it like usual and then leave it some time to dry and you'll end up with this really nice shiny piece. Okay, so I'm just going to let that air dry and I'm also going to finish off these ones. Okay, and here is how they look. Now you can take the heat gun very quickly and just set the wax a bit. I find that it creates an interesting effect and it diminishes the polish a little bit. And just heat it a bit. There we go. And using a hairdryer will work as well. And there we are. You can see those look really nice now. Now these you could turn into earrings. I'm not going to do that here. All you would have to do is drill a hole, put a jump ring in and attach an ear wire. And this one, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a necklace that I have ready to go. And I'm just gonna pop it through there. And of course I got it the wrong way around again. So I'll just quickly put this necklace on. And there we are, all done. So I do hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. Please let me know in the comments below whether you liked it or not. Please be sure to check back soon as there will be a Crackle video up every day if I manage to do the Crackle-a-thon properly. So please do check back soon. There will be more Crackles soon. And please do join my Facebook group as you will be able to get updates there, extra videos and all sorts of things. So please do check out over there. And as always, I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.